Castriata is excused due to illness, so I'll be chairing tonight's meeting. Information on how to watch, attend, and participate, as well as agendas, minutes, and recordings can be found on Broomfield's website at www.broomfield.org/council meetings. The public may also participate in public comment either in person or by calling 855-695-3744 and pressing *3 to be placed in the queue for comment. Screeners will ask callers for their first and last name, neighborhood, and the agenda item the caller would like to comment on. If you would like to speak on more than one item on tonight's agenda, you will need to press *3 each time to be placed back in the queue for comment. Public comment will be limited to 90 minutes total per item. The first 1 to 15 participants in the queue will have 3 minutes to speak. The next 16 to 25 participants in the queue will have 2 minutes to speak. If time remains, the next 26 plus participants in the queue will have 1 minute to speak. For our hard of hearing residents present, we have wireless headsets in the back available through our AV team. The City Council meeting is called to order. Mayor Castriata and Council members Henkel and Delgadillo are excused. Councilmember Wynn is attending the meeting remotely. A quorum of the council is present. Will everyone please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. In an effort to keep order for tonight's meeting, I ask council members to limit their comments to 5 minutes. If council members are given an opportunity to speak for a second time on an item, they should limit their comments communication to 2 minutes. We will plan on a 10-minute break at approximately 8 p.m. We will begin with council's review and approval of this evening's agenda. Council may add or remove items from the consent agenda, or council may revise the order of business for the meeting. Does any member of council have any comments or questions regarding this evening's agenda? Councilmember Cohen.
Are we, excuse me, are we taking 6E out of consent? Is that already planned?
We can definitely do that.
I'd move to do that, please.
Okay, so we will move 6E to the business agenda. Any other questions? And Councilmember Cohen, is it okay if we move that at the top of the business agenda? Thank you. Any other concerns, questions? All right, so we will make that change to move item 6E to the beginning of the business agenda. The first item under petitions and communications this evening is a proclamation declaring October 2024 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Will the staff representatives here to accept the proclamation please come and meet Councilmember Ward at the podium? Thank you for joining us this evening. I will summarize the proclamation and then I will turn it over to the representatives for comments. This proclamation recognizes that domestic violence is a widespread and devastating issue impacting individuals, families, and communities across the nation. Regardless of background, it includes physical, emotional, psychological, sexual abuse, and economic control, leading to long-term trauma and adverse effects on survivors' health. Domestic violence not only endangers victims, but also affects children, families, and communities, often perpetuating cycles of violence. It is crucial to acknowledge the strength and courage of survivors and provide them with support, resources, and services. Prevention, education, and awareness are essential in ending domestic violence, with the entire community playing a role in recognizing abuse and advocating for change. Local organizations, shelters, law enforcement, healthcare providers, and advocates offer critical assistance and raise awareness. October is recognized nationally as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, a time to honor survivors, remember those lost to violence, and renew our commitment to breaking the silence and standing against domestic violence in all forms. Therefore, the mayor hereby declares and proclaims October 2024 as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the city and county of Broomfield, and encourage all citizens to participate in efforts to prevent domestic violence, support survivors, and work towards a future where all individuals can live free from violence and fear. Would the representatives like to make any comments?
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council. My name is Tiffany Ramos. I'm the Division Manager for our Child Adult Family Services Division. Domestic violence is something that impacts many people in our community here in Broomfield. It's something that doesn't just happen behind closed doors. It impacts families, children, the fabric of our society. Domestic violence can leave lasting scars, especially on children who may witness or experience it. The effects can follow them into adulthood, shaping their relationships and their futures. That's why it's so important for us to come together to raise awareness and provide support. Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Broomfield isn't just a formality. It's a reminder that we all have a role to play in ending domestic violence. Let's support our local partners such as SPAN, Victim Services, law enforcement, and others to stand with our survivors, making our community a safer place. Thank you for your time and your commitment to this important cause. Together, we can make a difference. And I will turn it over to SPAN.
Good evening, council members. My name's Ann Tapp. I'm the executive director at Safe House Progressive Alliance for Nonviolence, or SPAN. And before I make it just a couple quick comments, I did want to introduce you to these amazing folks behind me. So if they could all run up and introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Carrie Diaz. I'm the Spanish bilingual legal lead at SPAN.
Tsunemi Maihara, she hurts, counseling program director for the last 21 years, and people wonder why I don't leave. There was a reason for it. Thank you.
Good evening, Mallory Woodman, Director of Legal Advocacy at SPAN.
Good evening. My name is Linda Seidenstick, and I am the Victim Services Coordinator with the Broomfield Police Department. I've been in victim services for over 12 years.
Hello, my name is Heather Aites, and I am a victim advocate here with Broomfield PD.
Sergeant Michael Didon, Broomfield Police Department Investigations Division.
Sergeant Todd Dahlbach, Broomfield Police Department Investigations Division.
Hi, Deputy Chief Mike Clement, Field Operations.
Deputy Chief Mark Goodell, Special Operations.
I'm Dale Hamlin, Patrol Commander. Thank you.
Detective Daniel Fazak, Broomfield Police Department Investigations Division.
Detective David Allen with the Broomfield Police Department and our investigations unit.
Detective Bilak with the Broomfield Police Department.
I think it's important to know the faces behind the work that's done in the community. And we are so fortunate not only to have your support, but to work with Broomfield Police Department, Broomfield Victim Services Unit, Child and Adult Family Services in Broomfield County. This is a community that works so closely together. And as most of us know, domestic violence can happen anywhere. We had a tragedy within the last week of a Broomfield resident murdered by a boyfriend. It impacts neighbors, it impacts families, it impacts the community. And it's only because of the commitment of these incredible people and the organizations that they represent that we're able to make a dent in how domestic violence impacts the city and county of Broomfield. So on behalf of our organization, on behalf of SPAN, thank you for stepping up and your leadership in doing the hard work to end domestic violence in our community. We appreciate you, and we especially appreciate these people.
Well, thank you to you both, Director Ramos and Director Tappan. Thank you for introducing all of the team that's there behind you. It definitely takes not only a community, but it takes a whole force. So thank you for all being here. We do take public comment on every agenda item. So we will now move forward to public comments, starting with in person. Is there anyone who would like to be heard? Please come to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Again, this is just on the proclamation. We'll get there. We'll get to general public comment soon enough. Any comments? Seeing no in-person comments, next we'll move to online or folks joining via phone. Is there anybody? There isn't anyone. So again, thank you to you all for the work that you do. Thank you for being here tonight. And yeah, just thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. I actually skipped something. We next have questions and comments from council members. I'm sorry. Are there any questions or comments? Oh, see, I anticipated that. So again, thank you for joining us this evening and bringing awareness to this important issue. Thank you. All right, next under petitions and communications this evening is a presentation from the library board. Will the library board representatives please come to the podium to share your presentation?
Hello. Right. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, city councilors, and staff. I am Julie Twiss, and I have the honor of serving as our Broomfield Library Board Chair. There are several other members and former members of our board here represented tonight, as well as our fearless director of the library, Catherine. We are very excited to share with y'all about some of the things that we've been working on. Thank you. All right, so this is our current board membership. This is a photo taken from our last meeting earlier this month. That I think that is everyone on our board except for myself. I was attending virtually and at a library conference. So we represent a wide range of backgrounds and come from all of the 5 wards in Broomfield. And our main purpose is to advise and give community input on continuous improvement projects of library programs and services, and to support their staff with strong policies to reflect our changing dynamics in our community. We review and approve or make recommendations on library policy, budgets, programming, and future planning. We asked all of our board members to kind of reflect on why we want to serve on the library board, why we think the library is important for our community. And these are a few quotes from our board that all circle around the idea, they're at the top, of keeping the library as a welcoming and accessible place to learn and grow for all of Broomfield. Our quotes from our library board members focus on creating a sense of connection for everyone, supporting staff with limited resources as they serve our growing city, and that libraries are a pathway to an informed community. Our board is made up of individuals that have benefited from library services themselves and want to pay that forward. As I was thinking about my own why and doing this, I was looking around. I actually found a really great quote about welcoming spaces and being accessible that I'd like to share with you. It's being welcoming is more than being friendly, tolerant, or peaceful. We truly believe welcoming places have intentional, inclusive policies, practices, and norms which enable all residents to live, thrive, and contribute fully. And if that sounds familiar, it's because you wrote it. It's the City and County of Broomfield's current community goals for thriving, diverse, safe, and welcoming communities. And as I was reading through those, I thought, well, that is what the library is. The library board is a highly sought after board that consistently receives a large number of applicants, which demonstrates that there are so many people in the community that value and support and want to be a part of what the library is doing. We all do this because we value the sense of connection and belonging that the library provides for all. It's one of the few spaces in our modern world where literally everyone belongs, regardless of background, demographics, or especially the ability to pay. The library is a core government service, and the access to that the library provides to our residents for information, technology, gathering spaces, and opportunities for growth is a vital component of a healthy, safe, and vibrant community. As I looked over, we kind of put together some of the things that we've been working on over the last year in particular, and realized kind of much of our work is multi-year, as I'm sure you know, all government service and public service is. This is an example of fine and fee removal. That the work was began by my predecessors on the library board and yours on city council. Almost a decade ago. The library became fine-free in 2019, which fines refer to late fees for books and items at the library, whereas fees are damaged or lost replacement costs. So like many libraries in Colorado, we've been fine-free since 2019. We then made the move to remove all fees, period, from children's items, and made that happen in 2021 with the very generous support of council. And we were the first in Colorado and possibly the nation to do so. This is work that continues as we look at now extending the fee removal to teen and adult materials. The Broomfield Library and Board received the 2022 Colorado Association of Libraries President's Community Award for the removal of fines, and the removal of fees and fines has been added to the newly published 2024 Colorado State Library Standards as a best practice. It has been a very successful change for children's items that has resulted in saved many savings of dollars and staff time and goodwill with the community. Some key board decisions that we have made this year, we've really focused on a lot of discussions and decisions around increased pressure of staff support and safety. This is a national issue with rising challenges to not only books, but to library staff themselves. As the library is full and used by so many different people for different purposes, there can be conflicts that arise. So we've been really trying to balance, strengthening library policy to protect both the rights of everyone to use the library with the safety and usability and maintaining a welcoming space for others. At each of our meetings, we receive reports from library staff on items including budgets, training, services, programs like summer reading, and the ever popular One Book, One Broomfield. Some of our future projects are to monitor and stay ahead of these increasing issues in libraries with challenges across the country. And locally. We are, like I said, looking at the possibility of removing fees for teen and adult materials as well. We're reviewing the Colorado Public Library standards and making recommendations for next steps to be in line with best practices for our profession, and keeping the community and council informed about future needs. Thank you. Many of our discussions of the library board center around space needs and the need for staff and for resources. We talk at every meeting about creative ways to spread programs and services throughout the community. If that's, expanded outreach, we've talked about bookmobiles and lockers and holds, deliveries and different things to try to meet the needs of our growing community. In this graph, you can see these are some of our neighboring and peer libraries. If you can't see there, it is Denver, Boulder, Louisville, Lafayette, Westminster, Loveland, Longmont, and Broomfield is on the end. The blue bars show the ratio of library square feet to population. So as you can see, we are the smallest space per capita of any of our neighboring or peer libraries. But if you look at the red bars, that is the ratio of programming attendance to square footage. So not total programming attendance. And I should indicate here, Denver and Westminster during this time period had building closures for construction and other things. But the important takeaway from this graph is that our library is overperforming for the space that we have. These numbers are from 2022 and 2023. And in the past year, we've seen an over 98% increase in programming. That does not include the people that we have had to turn away from children's programs, especially story times, are almost always at capacity or over and having to turn away children. Our, One Book, One Broomfield program that saw 400 people and an additional close to 100 people that were not able to participate because we did not have the space or the capacity for that, as well as the makerspace at Invent HQ. We've talked a lot about, expanding hours and what we can do to really open that space because it is often at capacity for programs and for open hours. One thing, thank you very much to City Council for recently approving some new FTE staff additions. The staff are what make everything possible, whether it's in the building or out. It is important to manage the pressure that is on the staff to deliver such a high level of programs and services for our community with very limited resources. The kind of long and short of the situation is that the library is over capacity and has been functioning at that for a while. And if we continue to grow without adding that space, the library's ability to serve and to meet the needs of our community will decrease, especially in our northern corridor where the largest, growth is set to happen over the next few years. And just kind of to wrap up before I open for questions for you, I'd like to share one more quote from the Colorado State Library Standards on the importance of libraries in the community. The public library contributes to the economic health of the community, collects the memories of the community, and provides a place where people can explore, create, learn, meet, connect, become informed, share ideas, and be transformed. The library is a vital community asset with locally driven priorities. Our Broomfield Library is a dynamic space that listens and responds to the needs of our community. So thank you, council and staff, for your support of the library and for investing in us to be able to continue to provide exceptional services for the people of Broomfield today and into the future. Thanks. Do you have questions?
Well, thank you, Chairperson Twist, for your presentation. We will now proceed with public comments, starting with in person. Is there anybody in person that would like to comment on this agenda item? Please state your name, your neighborhood for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Sandy Anderson, live in the Broadlands. Mayor, May Pro Tem, council, executive staff. Our library is just awesome. That's really simply what I want to say. And I do want to support that I've applied for the library a couple of times now. I get put on other stuff that I am sure is not as fun as the library. So I don't know what it's going to take. But I think my term comes up in like 2 years, so I'm going to be coming around a little bit more and see if I can get on the library. But it really is a phenomenal library. You know, I wish when I had young children that we had the programming that was available that Broomfield brings. And our librarians and the staff are just heroes in my eyes. So thank you for the opportunity to speak, and you guys are awesome.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anybody else in person that would like to comment? Come on down. Please state your name and neighborhood for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
I'm Dave Feineman. I will live in Ward 2 in Skystone. I'm going to touch the electrified rail and basically say what my understanding is a version of the council heard that there was a space issue 17 years ago, and up until now has done not much in the way of making a commitment about when or how we would actually address not an extension of the library, but the main library itself, right? And it's a matter of 17 years seems like a long time to kick a can down the road where it's just a problem kind of thing. You can tell me that because of all of the other challenges on the budget, we are not going to do anything for the next 2 years, but that means we've had a problem for 2 decades and we're working on going for 3. And so it's a matter of, you've already heard, what happens in the library when it's space constrained is there are programs that get put on and then people get pushed away. It doesn't seem like that actually aligns with the view of a welcoming and place where we're actually valuing knowledge exchange and access and the general community building that goes on in that building. And so I just wanted to at least lay out that at some point, we actually need to come back to this whole question of if this isn't the right time, what's the right plan? Because you can't just ask Catherine to live with what she's got forever kind of thing. And the only place where we can go for money for this library is in this side of this room. Thank you.
Is there anybody else in person that would like to provide comments on this agenda item? Please come forward and state your name and neighborhood for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
My name is Laura Pionki, and I live in the Westlake Village, and I believe that's Ward 5. I am a huge library proponent, so much so that I have a library card both at Denver, Adams Counties, Anythink, and Broomfield. And I truly believe that libraries reflect the communities they serve. And we have a great community here, and I would love to see the library step up and reflect that as well. We have other great library systems within the state that we could look at and borrow ideas from them and collaborate with them as well. So I am definitely for more funding for our libraries. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. there anyone else in person that would like to provide comments? All right, seeing no one else, is there anyone online that would like to provide comments? And seeing no one online. So we will now turn to questions and comments from council. Are there any council members, questions or comments? And we will start with Councilmember Marshallson.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you for coming and presenting to us. Library, in my opinion, is one of the core essential services that we as a community provide. I do know that the funding doesn't always match up with that. You need more funding, and I absolutely understand that. Finding funding for that for you is a challenge, obviously, with the competing interests. One question I had for you, we've had some discussions up here during our budget conversations about whether or not we should consider moving to a independent library district. Has the board discussed that at all? And do you have any thoughts on that idea?
There have been hints of that discussion, but not a full discussion along those terms as a full board, no. I have a lot of thoughts on it. As I'm sure you know from your budget talks, roughly half of Colorado library systems are now library districts that operate with their independent funding. It seems to be a good model. Boulder has recently moved that direction. I think there are a lot of benefits to being a part of the city and county. And funding has not been one of them recently or for 17 years. But I think it is something worth considering because we do have some pretty serious space needs as well as deferred maintenance and, you know, the building that we're in now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I also was going to ask about the library district. I think Boulder went in 2023, and I think Anythink is actually a text district as well. So I hope it's something we maybe consider in the future. I did want to ask in terms of so much that's been coming to libraries in the last 4 years since the pandemic, and that's in terms of not just challenges to content, but employee safety in particular. Do the staff feel like they have enough training and enough resources at this time in terms of their own personal safety?
I know that there has been some additional. Catherine, would you? Yes, please.
Time for phone a friend. It is something we talk about. Any public space you're not guaranteed safety. So we do as much as we can in partnering with our amazing police department and having a really good relationship there, as well as staff training about early boundary setting, and the board has been extremely helpful with helping, and our attorney's office set those kind of policies that give us the best opportunities to nip issues early. But it is a challenge, and it's a challenge for staff who that's not why we got into the business. And so I won't pull the punch that is a stressor for staff and will continue to be, and training is helpful, but it's also just a new reality.
Very good. The last thing I just wanted, since the other comments were made about the Broomfield Town Center, could you refresh our memory? I know we've talked about it quite a bit, long time ago, about the plans in conjunction with the town center and your expansion plans and current status for everybody's information.
Sure. Where we are right now is we have worked with the developer to get the boundary lines in place so that there is an expansion available to the library. So that is protected for the time at which we'll be able to expand in roughly the plan we brought in 2019 for the level of expansion, which is not quite doubling it, but would be close to doubling the size. And the space is preserved.
Thank you, Councilmember Cohen. Councilmember Anderson.
Right, thank you. This is a great presentation. And I just have a question about, okay, I think it's really cool how much attention the library is getting on the removal of the fines and fees. And if you could just, I know one of the things that we talked about a couple of years ago was, you have to kind of have, build that trust up that people are actually going to return those materials. I would love to hear an update. Is it kind of an even wash without having to pay the administrative fees with the number of people that are not returning? Is it working kind of as planned?
There has been almost no impact on behavior for returning items.
Okay, that is so awesome.
There has been a great increase in goodwill. The conversations between frontline staff and children and parents of children saying, I lost this book, I can't take any more books. And being like, no, it's okay. It's okay, you can still take books, It's so important to get books and materials into the hands, especially of children in the community. But the cost savings from not having to track down from a collection agency or and in just staff time in processing and tracking the lost, at what point does it become, and then you have to send notices, and that sort of time has made a huge savings to where it costs less to not collect fees.
That is so great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other council member questions or comments on this agenda item? Well, thank you again for coming to council and presenting your wonderful report. Thank you to the other board members for being here as well. I think that when we look at this, as you stated, the economic health and the community vitality is essential for Broomfield, and that is clearly seen within our library. That paints that picture pretty clearly. So thank you for continuing to advance the mission of the library. Thank you for continuing to advance our library as well. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Councilmember Nguyen, I saw you pop up. I just wanted to make sure you didn't have a question on this agenda item.
No questions.
All right, thank you. All right, well, thank you again for your presentation. We now move to council member reports. Does any member of the council have any reports or updates this evening? Councilmember Lim.
I wanted to take a minute to thank the staff who prepared and those who facilitated Broomfield Days. I know that's a lot of work for everyone. Everyone seemed to enjoy it very much. Those of us who were at the sustainability booth appreciated all the residents who stopped by and spun the wheel and answered a trivia question. That was great fun. And on that note of sustainability, I wanted to make sure that everyone knew that the Shredded event is this Saturday, September 28th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., no appointment. And the household hazardous waste drop-off is Saturday, October 12th, and you do need appointment for that. You can find more information at broomfield.org. Thanks.
Any other council member reports? Seeing none, I'll just echo the thanks for Broomfield Days. Thank you to whoever held off the rain that day. You held off just in time to get most of the stuff packed up, so much appreciation. We will now continue with public comments. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on matters other than the items already listed elsewhere on the assigned agenda. If there is anyone who would like to be heard, please come to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Hi, Stuart Hartman, Ward 2, Broomfield Heights. I've lived in Broomfield for about 45 years. I did not attend or follow the council discussions on the recently passed waste ordinance. But I'd like to point out before I make any comments about that ordinance that this represents the 9 gallons that I throw away as waste every month. Everything else is recycled. And I currently do not have a waste system that I'm paying for. The last one that I tried would not pick up this amount of waste, even if I put it out. I'm disappointed that compost is not part of the required recycling. Also would like to object that not all of Broomfield is required to participate in recycling in any fashion, as under section 804-026, the premises excluded excludes commercial and industrial, and especially that apartment buildings of more than 8 units is not included to provide any access to recycling, though both of those could provide recycling if they wished. At least under Part C of that section, HOAs are required to be exempt to provide recycling. The rates as published in the Broomfield Enterprise on September 5th, 7th, and pages 7 and 10, if implemented as those rates, it turns out that it's actually slightly cheaper to fill a larger container than the smallest. And what prevents anyone from paying for the smallest container? And when needed, contaminate the recycling stream by putting trash in the recycling containers. There's no indication of how that would be done. So thank you for listening to my comments. And I'm hoping that there will be some possible changes made in the future once the details of the actual implementation will occur. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Hartman. Next.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, or Mayor Pro Tem and Council, John Ewalt, Pinnacle North. So at the beginning of every Law and Order episode, there is a voiceover, and I cannot do the voice justice, but it states, in the criminal justice system, the people are represented by two separate yet equally important groups, the police who investigate crime and the district attorneys who prosecute the offenders. So the people, being us, have heard from one of our representatives in the criminal justice system. Is it possible for us to hear from the other? Recently, we heard from Chief Hempelman with a quarterly report about the state of public safety in Broomfield. I had several questions coming into that meeting, and Chief Hempelman answered every one of those questions. I appreciate hearing from Chief Hempelman and learning about the proactive actions that are being taken to target criminals in our community. Unfortunately, this is only half of the story. Would you, Mayor Pro Tem, or any council member, or possibly Attorney Rogers, be willing and able to invite DA Mason or an assistant district attorney to come and speak to the people of Broomfield in the same way that Chief Hempelman has done? Personally, I would be very interested in hearing the same type of reporting on the state of prosecution of crimes that are committed in Broomfield. For example, what was the outcome of the 80 arrests and stealing the bait bikes that we heard about from Chief Hempelman? I'm sure others would be interested in this information as well. I will also point out that in last week's budget discussions on the courts, the rising cost of DA services was a topic. I think it is only fair that the DA's office be able to defend the rising cost for Broomfield when the level of crime, and one would expect the number of cases to prosecute, is falling. Just as we ask our police chief to give a report to the public, I think it is only fair that we ask the same of the DA. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other public comments in person? Seeing none, we will move to comments from individuals joining via phone. Do we have anybody online? Seeing none. And Attorney Rogers, I do believe in not too distant future, we will have Brian Mason in front of council.
We don't have anything formally scheduled, but I did reach out to his office and talk to his deputy about getting something scheduled for DA Mason to come and present to council.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, we will now continue with reports section of the agenda. This evening, am I in the right place? Just want to make sure. We got public comment. All right, sorry about that. So we will now continue with reports section of the agenda. This evening, council will be voting to reassign 2 of their self-appointed board positions. These are 2-year appointments to internal and external committees, boards, and organizations, and are made every 2 years following a municipal election. There is a need to change the council appointments to NADA, North Area Transportation Alliance, and CC4CA. Councilmember Ward has indicated that his work schedule no longer permits him to make the meetings of the North Area Transportation Alliance, and Councilmember Marsh Holshan has agreed to serve as the Broomfield representative. Additionally, Councilmembers Lim and Anderson have expressed interest in switching their roles on CC4CA so that Councilmember Lim will be the primary representative and Councilmember Anderson will be the alternate. Before we proceed with a motion to make these changes, we'll take any public comments starting with in person. Is there anybody in person that would like to make a comment? Seeing none, we will move to the phone. Is there anybody on phone that would like to make a comment? Seeing none. Questions from City Council are next. Are there any questions or comments, questions from council members? Seeing none, the slate of appointments for this evening are Colorado Communities for Climate Action, CC4CA, Councilmember Jean Lim will become the member. She is currently the alternate. Councilmember Lori Anderson will become the alternate. She is currently the member. The other board that we will be addressing is the North Area Transportation Alliance. Councilmember James Marsh Holshan will become the alternate, moving from the alternate. Councilmember Marsh Holshan will become the member, moving from the alternate. Yes. Clarification?
Councilmember Cohen's currently the alternate, I believe.
I'm sorry about that. Yes, Councilmember Cohen is currently the alternate. Councilmember Marsh Holshan will become the member. Thank you for that. Are there any objections to the slate? Seeing no objections, is there a motion to approve the slate as presented? Councilmember Ward?
So moved.
Is there a second? Councilmember Anderson?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, council, please cast your vote electronically. Councilmember Nguyen, please state your vote verbally.
I vote yes.
Thank you. All council members have entered their vote and the results will now be displayed on screen and that passes unanimously 8-0. City and County Manager Hoffman, do you have any reports this evening?
I do not, but my colleague does.
Could I get that slide put up? We wanted to provide council and the public an update on what's the next steps on the budget. So as a process, the budget is approved by one vote. It's a resolution. There's a mandated public hearing. In addition, we also have the enterprise ordinances, which will address the rate increases and the establishment of the stormwater enterprise. So for those who are planning out their calendars, on October 1st, at 6 o'clock in this room, we will have the public hearing on the budget. There will not be a vote on the budget that night. It's just the public hearing. That same meeting will also have the first reading and vote on the enterprise rate ordinances. There's 2 of them. So the way that evening will go, there'll be a staff presentation on the totality of the budget, including the proposed rate ordinance, the rate increases. Then there'll be public comment. Then there'll be council questions and comments, and then there'll be a vote on those ordinances. But again, there won't be a vote that night on the budget. Then fast forward to October 22nd. This is a night where council does vote on the budget. There'll be a staff presentation on the budget and the enterprise fund situation and the proposed rate increases, public comment, council questions and comments. Then there'll be a vote on the second reading of those 2 enterprise ordinances. And then there'll be a vote on the proposed budgets. You heard me say budgets. Our council also acts as our Urban Renewal Authority Board and our Arista Local Improvement District Board. They'll be voting on not only City and County of Broomfield's budget that night, but also the borough budget and the ALID, the Arista Local Improvement District budget. So that's the process sort of in a quick nutshell for those that are planning. Just to reiterate, there will be public comment both nights. There's also the opportunity to email council or utilize other mechanisms that our public has in the past to make their comments known to council on these two issues. That was all, Mayor Pro Tem, unless there's any questions.
Thank you. Is there any questions from council members? Well, thank you, staff, for Councilmember Lim.
The questions that have been submitted by online forms by residents, they had an opportunity to submit questions. It had I think about a September 20th deadline or something like that. Will Will those questions and answers be part of the correspondence for the memo?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council? Seeing none, thank you to staff for the budget information. I know that that was a late request, but I do appreciate you getting that to council as well as the public. Council member colleagues, noticing the schedule that is going to be tight regarding the budgets especially, please get your questions and any amendment ideas to your colleagues and staff in plenty of advance, because this will move quickly and it is a big agenda item. So thank you for that. Council's consideration of the consent items are next. Item 6E was moved from consent agenda earlier this meeting and will be heard separately. Before we start, I want to note that one of the consent items is for the Board of Social Services. Council sits at the Board of Social Services, and actions of City Council are actions of the board. The clerk will read all the consent items by title, and there will be one opportunity for public comments and council questions and comments. Will the clerk please read agenda items 6A through 6D by title?
6A, approval of minutes from the September 10th, 2024 regular city council meeting. 6B, resolution number 2024-87, approving the First Amendment to the agreement with Mile High Flood District for design and construction of drainage and flood control improvements for the City Park Drainage Way at Main Street. 6C, resolution number 2024-132, Board of Social Services, acknowledging review of expenditures and electronic benefits transfer for April, May, June of 2024. 6D, resolution number 2024-130, approving a construction agreement with Summit Partners Limited for the 4-door steel garage for housing evidentiary vehicles.
Thank you. We will now proceed with public comments, starting with in person. If there is anyone who would like to be heard, please come to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing none, we will move to public comment from individuals joining by phone. Do we have anybody in the queue? We do not. So does any member of council have any comments on this, on these agenda items? Councilmember Lim.
I have a couple questions on 6B, the amendment with the Mile High Flood District. First question, the work on that, in that area would be Ward 3 to the north and Ward 2 to the south. The truck route, any kind of equipment access that's coming into that park, where is that truck route?
Good evening, Katie Allen, Co-Director of Community Development. So Councilmember Lim, you're asking about the future City Park Channel project under Main Street?
Yeah.
I don't think they've developed those details yet.
Don't have those details yet, okay. And will there be a Broomfield, any kind of CIP page on that, or Broomfield voice page to update anyone on the residents on the progress of that eventually?
I'm sure we will. We just don't have the,
You
we
will.
want to have the start date and all those details before we put that out there.
It seemed, the memo seemed to indicate that there was an effort to expedite things with us. And do you have a timeline, if this is approved, when that would move forward?
Yeah, so Mile High Flood District has selected the contractor based on qualifications, and it's the same contractor working on Nissen Phase 1. That is supposed to wrap up around June of 2025, and then they would then move to this project, presuming all the funding is in place.
Okay, great.
So next summer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from council? Seeing none, before asking for a motion, I want to remind everyone that item 6B contains an intergovernmental agreement, which requires 2/3 approval of the entire council or 7 votes. Is there a motion by council that consent items 6A through 6D be approved? Councilmember Ward?
So moved.
Is there a second? Councilmember Marshall.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, council, please cast your vote electronically. Councilmember Nguyen, please state your vote verbally.
I vote yes.
Great. All council members have entered their vote. The results will now be displayed on the screen. That passes 8-0. The first matter under action items this evening is item 6E, a resolution supporting Adams 12 5-star schools, proposed bond measure, and mill levy override. Council has a copy of the resolution, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, Nancy Rogers, the city and county attorney. I'll do a short summary, and then I know we have representatives from the school district here. In late August, the Adams 12 Board of Education unanimously approved placing an $830 million bond measure for facilities and an 8.129 mill levy increase that would raise $34.5 million for operation on the November 2024 ballot. Adams 12 5-star schools serves, as you know, approximately 36,000 students, some of which who live in Broomfield. Rocky Mountain Partnership had requested the city council consider a resolution supporting the proposed measure. Resolution 2024-146, if approved, would express council support and would encourage Broomfield voters to vote yes on the mandate. That is all for staff's report.
Thank you. I'd also like to invite Superintendent Chris Godowski to make some comments on this matter if you would like.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, council members and staff. I am Chris Godowski, Superintendent for the Adams 12 5-star schools and a resident of Country Estates in Broomfield. I thought I might just share some background information about the complexity of public schooling in Broomfield and how that often manifests in very disparate financial support for the school districts within Broomfield. So you all probably know that there are 6 different school districts that are part of the city and county of Broomfield. They include Boulder Valley Schools, Adams 12, Jeffco, St. Vrain, 27J, and what I commonly refer to as the Fort Lupton Schools that has a Weld County formal legal name. So 6 different school districts. Most of the students that are served in public schools in Broomfield attend both Boulder Valley or Adams 12 schools. And I think people are often surprised to hear about how significantly different the funding resources are between our 2 school districts. So I'll just share a few data points that I think are helpful as you consider remarks from Ms. Goldstein and the resolution in front of you. Out of the 15 metro area school districts that range from Douglas County up to St. Vrain, Adams 12 stands 13th out of 15th in terms of the amount of supplemental local revenue it receives each year. Over time, the amount of supplemental local revenue has grown more significant in many of the communities in this region. It's a byproduct of at least 4 failed state revenue measures to support K-12 during my 15-year tenure in this role. What we've often heard in focus groups afterwards is that we support and trust local school districts more in terms of giving our money to them and trusting them to spend it well instead of the state. So there have been a number of unsuccessful state ballot measures to increase K-12 revenue. The legislature has often expressed interest for funding K-12 more robustly than it's been able to. There's limits, as you know, because of Tabor on how much they can increase spending in the state budget and how much they can increase K-12 spending. So it's taken them a long time over the last 15 years to catch up with the rate of funding back in the 2009-2010 school year before the state introduced what they called the budget stabilization factor, which over the last 15 years has funded K-12 schools less than they were before the 9-10 school year after accounting for inflation. In that backdrop, what's happened is that school districts have sought legislative approval to ask their local voters for more and more money. And so now there are 4 different kinds of supplemental revenues that you can ask on the operating side to support a school district. One is a general mill levy override to supplement operations, and that can be up to 25% of what you get under the state formula. You can ask more money for transportation, more money for technology, and more money for maintenance and security purposes. And some school districts have received supplemental funding for all 4 of those different types of supplemental resources. Where it leaves Adams 12, as I said before, is 13th out of 15th in the metro area in terms of those supplemental resources. On a per pupil basis, the differences are stark. So in Boulder Valley, it's the 2nd out of those 15, 2nd highest in the metro area in terms of supplemental revenues. Boulder Valley students receive $4,478 in supplemental local revenues each year. Adams 12 at 13th out of 15th, it receives $1,903 currently in supplemental revenue. And so that difference is $2,575 per student. When you serve 35,000 students roughly, which is the approximate number of students we serve in Adams 12 this year, and you multiply by 2,575, you end up in a deficit or a difference between Adams 12 and Boulder Valley of $90 million a year. And so there's only so far you can go in terms of efficiencies and reductions and trying to be creative in your funding before you start to hit the wall in terms of being competitive in teacher salary and in terms of having enough resources to provide all the opportunities that your community demands. Teacher salary is a good example, and it's part of what we plan to invest in with some of these proceeds if voters approve our $34.5 million mill levy override. In Boulder Valley, the average teacher earns $96,820 a year according to 23-24 data from the Colorado Department of Education. Second is Cherry Creek, third is Denver, fourth is Westminster Public Schools, fifth is St. Vrain, sixth is Mapleton, seventh is Jeffco, and Adams 12 is eighth at $77,440 a year, which is a $19,000 plus difference per teacher. So I hope that's helpful background. I think often people find it very surprising that if you cross Sheridan or other boundaries between Adams 12 and Boulder Valley, that the funding differences can be so dramatic. We're proud of what we've done with our resources in the past. We're proud that Legacy High School was rated the 15th best high school in Colorado by US News and World Report last year. The highest performing public school in Broomfield by quite a bit. We're proud that we had the highest composite SAT scores for last year's senior graduating class in Adams 12 history. We're proud that 71% of our kids last year received 3, 4s, or 5s on AP exams compared to 42% 15 years ago. We're proud that we're awarding hundreds of certificates for students in various industry certifications and have grown that dramatically over the last few years. And I could go on and on and on. We've produced really strong results with the limited resources that we have, but to take the next step and to invest in our teachers and keep them here instead of traveling to other districts, and to be in a spot where we expand career and technical education further, and to be in a spot where we're adding computer science as an option for every elementary kid in Adams 12. These additional resources are essential for us to do all of those things. I'll also just briefly mention that in terms of facilities, the bond measure comes without a tax rate increase. So we would maintain the mill levy at 18.665 mills, which is a reduction of 3 mills from where it's been for over the last 12 years. So we reduced it for this year and we would maintain it at 18.665. Our investments would be less significant in Broomfield than they have been in the past, to be candid. Most recently, you know that we invested pretty heavily in building the Thunder Vista K-8 school in the last bond cycle. Down the road, we'll need to invest heavily in a school in the Baseline subdivision, but there's just not enough school-age students in that subdivision at present to warrant an expensive new school. But we will be making extensive renovations and improvements to Legacy High School, to Westlake, to Centennial, and the other facilities that Broomfield students would enjoy. So for all those reasons, I would urge and appreciate a yes vote on the resolution.
Thank you for your comments. We will now proceed with public comments, starting with in person. If there is anyone who would like to be heard, I wasn't sure if you were providing public comments or if you were providing official comments, but please come to the podium.
Matters. I get 3 minutes or not. So I'm Lori Goldstein. I'm the president of the Adams 12 Board of Ed. I'm a resident of Westminster, just kitty corner across the street. So I too have come here today to express the board's appreciation for your consideration to support the district's bond and mill levy. The mill levy override request specifically targets wages, as Superintendent Godowski has pointed out, and will allow us to compete with our neighbors in BVSD, which will also help us meet the needs of students and the competition from the neighboring districts like you and the ones on the other side of us, in order to provide a high quality educational experience. Our teachers deserve more and our students deserve a high quality learning experience. Superintendent Godowski already pointed out the difference in salaries between an Adams 12 average salary of an Adams 12 educator and the average salary of a BVSD educator. And it's just, there's just a
street dividing them. So it'll also allow Adams 12 to provide greater access to enrichment classes. We would really like to have all our students in elementary school have access to computer science. And we also need to expand our career and technical classes for both the middle school and the high school students. There's a 10% wait list of students wanting to take our career and technical classes. So also to reemphasize that voting for the bond will not result in new taxes. It simply allows Adams 12 to restructure its debt to allow us to focus on our funds on aging infrastructure. Thornton High School is 50 years old and the foundation is crumbling. It's beyond repair. I mean, it's more economical to just rebuild it. The expenses to rebuild it are more than the rebuild. The bond will also allow us to expand our Wash Square. It's career and technical. If we want to expand our programs, we need to expand the space we have them in. Also allow us to build a central warehouse for our food service, making it more economical for food delivery to our schools. So the services that deliver food to our schools have to go to 52 buildings. They would only have to go to one. It would also allow us to make improvements to every school, and every school has identified the needs that it has. We want that enhance our safety features, improve our playgrounds, replace antiquated heating systems, and more. So depending on the particular needs of the school. You can visit adams12.org, and the blueprint is the plan that will give you more insights as to what we plan on doing. We also want to reemphasize that these commitments also apply to the charter schools that we authorize in our district. I'm going to point out a few more highlights of the schools that we serve in Broomfield. Centennial Elementary School showed the best growth, a significant growth in reading, something they've been working on for a while. Coyote Ridge Elementary School received both the John Irwin Award and the Governor's Distinguished Improvement Award. I already know that Legacy High School is number 15 in Colorado because based on US News and World Report. Meridian Elementary held their first ever multicultural festival that includes sharing among Meridian families from 22 different countries and cultures. Some of you might have been able to partake in and observe Mountain Views Elementary School's Deaf and Hard of Hearing program. It's a beautiful program if you haven't. They host a signing choir performing for parents, students, and staff. Also, Colorado State Honor Band celebrated 5 Westlake Middle School students and their teacher, Mr. Michael Windham, on their first division gold medals at Colorado Honor Band Association Solo and Ensemble Festival. So a lot of great things going on in our schools in Broomfield. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your comments. Is there any other official comments before we move to public comments? Just want to make sure I don't miss anybody. All right, we will now proceed with public comments, starting with in-person. If there is anyone who would like to be heard, please come to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Okay, Stuart Hartman, Ward 2. Back when we became a county of ourselves, lots of my friends, especially in Boulder, thought that the school district was part of that. They were shocked to find out it wasn't. Over time, there have been a couple of attempts, as I understand it, to look into becoming our own school district. Perhaps it's time, given what the difference between Adams 12 and Boulder school districts and the amount of resources that they can use, perhaps it's time to really seriously consider becoming our own school district and to really look into what it's going to take to negotiate with the other school districts in order to convert all of the resources, the buildings, et cetera, that we now have into a Broomfield school district. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else in person that would like to provide comments? Please come to the podium, state your name and neighborhood, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Ashley Edinger. I do not live in the city and county of Broomfield. However, I do work with Rocky Mountain Partnership, who made the initial request. And I wanted to just share a little bit about why we feel that it's so important that we support the mill and bond for Adams 12 5-star schools. One of the big things is we know that, yes, it's going to support our students, but ultimately it's going to support our workforce and our community at large. We understand that the decisions we make today are going to shape what happens for the near future and the far future. The school district is not just an educational institution that operates here in the city and county of Broomfield, but it's a cornerstone of our region's future economic prosperity. The challenges that we face in this community are interconnected, and addressing them holistically can lead to a shared economic growth for everyone. Many of you may or may not know, but Adams 12 5-star schools and the city and county of Broomfield are part of a broader regional movement through the Rocky Mountain Partnership to support 71,000 more young people to meet key cradle to career outcomes by 2030. Yet we face a stark reality that across Adams and Broomfield counties, over 123,000 young people are not meeting these milestones. This is not just a loss for them, but it's significant untapped potential for our community and our economy. Colorado's biggest economic asset is its untapped talent. And unfortunately, our education systems, including Adams 12, are doing the best they can with the resources available, but they can do more with additional support, especially for our young people here in the city and county of Broomfield. At the state level, a recent report highlighted that the labor shortage is costing the state $46 billion annually in GDP. But if we were across the state, starting here in our region, to support meeting the workforce needs by ensuring our young people have the skills and credentials that they need, that meet employers' needs, if we just meet it by 10% and employ 79,000 more skilled workers, that would provide substantial economic advantages, including over 25,000 additional jobs, 2.8 billion in GDP, and 4.91 billion in personal income. Oftentimes, you all may have experienced this, but Adams 12, the city and county of Broomfield, and this larger region is often passed over for resources, and we can't afford to let that continue. One of the reasons why Rocky Mountain Partnership was so adamant about making this request is we know that we have to support this training ground for our future and our current workforce, and the mill and the bond measures are both essential. Without them, we risk having empty buildings and a workforce that is ill-prepared for the challenges of tomorrow. So let's not just prepare for the future, let's build it together. I urge you to support the resolution in support of the Adams 12 mill levy override and bond. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in person that would like to provide comments? Please come to the podium, state your name and neighborhood for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, Julie Twiss again. Brandywine, Ward 1. And I am an Adams 12 parent. I have 2 children in the Adams 12 schools. I've come up through Mountain View, Westlake, and now Legacy. I have also had the opportunity to volunteer in the schools, multiple schools, and work for a brief time as a guest teacher in several Adams 12 schools a few years ago. I've also had the opportunity to serve on the Long-Range Planning Advisory Committee for the Board of Education, which means that I had the opportunity to receive monthly reports on the 2016 bond initiative and progress. And I have been consistently very impressed with the thoughtfulness, fiscal responsibility, and value that has been provided with the resources that the voters gave to Adams 12. They met and exceeded the promises made for the 2016 bond. It was a worthwhile and really incredible investment in our community. As for the mill levy, my children have had teachers, elementary school teachers, amazing teachers with master's degrees who cannot afford to live in our community. And that is troubling. I would highly encourage you to support both the bond and the mill levy measures. I will enthusiastically be voting yes for them. And I hope council and yourselves will as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else in person that would like to provide comments tonight? Seeing none, we will move to public comment from individuals joining via phone. Do we have anyone online? Perfect. Questions from council are next. Are there any questions from council members on this agenda item? Seeing none, will the clerk please please read the proposed resolution by title?
Resolution number 2024-146, supporting Adams 12 5-star schools proposed bond measure and mill levy override.
Is there any discussion on this agenda item? Oh, thank you. We should have a motion first. As a reminder, this item is to support a ballot measure and requires a vote of 2/3 majority of the entire council. Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Councilmember Ward?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second? Councilmember Cohen? Can I get a second? I just didn't hear it. Thank you. Now, is there any discussion? Thank you, Councilmember Ward. Councilmember Marshallson.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. As many of you probably are aware, I need to disclose that my wife is an elected member of the Adams 12 Board of Education. It is a voluntary position, therefore there's no compensation, so that a vote out tonight does not provide any financial benefit to myself or my family, so therefore I do not have to recuse myself, and I do believe I can be objective in this vote. So just want to disclose that. That said, I do fully support this. Three of my kids have graduated from Adams 12 and 2 are currently in Adams 12. My 2 youngest are in STEM lab and the studio school, both over in North Glen. They're great schools. I couldn't say more highly about the Adams 12 education that all the kids have had. So I fully support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Cohen?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll disclose my wife is a teacher for 20 years, but the last 10 in the Jeffco district, but my kids went through both Legacy High School. And I just wanted to comment, this is the least we could do. I think it's important that the Adams 12 does amazing things with the resources they have. All the schools in Colorado do amazing things with far less resources. It's really a shame that Colorado is the Mississippi of the mountains when it comes to school funding. We're at the bottom. And when we moved here 10 years ago, my kids experienced, while they still got a great education because some of the great programs, especially Legacy 2000, which is amazing, far fewer electives, open class periods because there weren't enough teachers to teach classes for all the students. And the list can go on. My wife in Jeffco has experienced the same thing. She pays for her own professional development. She pays for all her classroom materials, and the list goes on and on. We really should do better. So I would urge everybody to please pass this. It's, as I said, the least we can do. And someday, hopefully, we'll start investing more heavily in our education system. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Lim?
I just wanted to quickly second the remarks of the Rocky Mountain Partnership with their concerns for how the schools form students to be workers for the future. So I serve on the workforce board representing Broomfield at the state level, and that is constantly what we're talking about is how do we begin to form the workers of tomorrow, how we need to increase the technical and career emphasis already in high school. And so I appreciate that this funding effort is going towards those needs. Thank you.
Councilmember Ward?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. As many of you probably know, Ward 2 has no part of its boundaries within the Adams 12 School District, but a sizable portion of Broomfield does rely on Adams 12, and the disparity between the funding for BVSD, which is predominantly Ward 2, and Adams 12 is astonishing, and truly, I would probably echo what Councilmember Cohen had to say about us being the Mississippi of the Mountain West. Just as a reminder, with what one public comment was about teachers not being able to afford to live in Broomfield, our area median income, or AMI, is roughly 120-ish thousand a year, which is a sizable difference than the 77,000 that the average Adams 12 school teacher makes. And I think if that doesn't give you enough reason, then I'm sure there are plenty of other reasons why you should vote for this, but I will support the motion.
Thank you. Seeing no other council member comments on this, I'll add mine. And I guess while we're at disclosures, I got to disclose I'm a substitute teacher currently teaching first grade, but in BVSD, not Adams 12. Thank you to Superintendent Chris Godowski for being here, and school board member Laura Goldstein for being here. And thank you to the Rocky Mountain Partnership for your comments as well. You know, we typically have the Mountain View Singing Choir. I think they're a regular here at our tree lighting every December. And so they're definitely a delight for our community and for the other schools that are in attendance as well. But there's many great things that Adams 12 brings to our community. And I think that this is one way to support Adams 12 back is by supporting this ballot measure. So I look forward to supporting that with my colleagues and urge the community to support this as well for the future of our community, but also for our current kids as well. So with that, council, please cast your vote electronically. And Councilmember Nguyen, please state your vote verbally.
I vote yes.
Thank you. All council members have entered their vote. The results will now be displayed on screen, and that passes unanimously 8-0. Thank you again for being here. The next matter this evening relates to the funding for the demolition of the Event Center. There are 4 proposed resolutions with 2 resolutions each for council and borough's consideration related to that funding. Before we proceed, we'll convene a meeting of borough. The meeting of Brimfield Urban Renewal Authority is called to order to consider agenda item 7B concurrently. I'll note that all members of the authority are present except for Mayor Castriota, council members Hankel and Delgadillo, Councilmember Nguyen, and borough member Lizla Evans are attending remotely. Council and borough have a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Mr. Romine. He's so professional, waiting for the official introduction.
First off, Mayor Pro Tem, members of borough, members of City Council. I just didn't know if you were going to cover it tonight. So I was just, I'll lay in wait. So thank you. As Mayor Pro Tem pointed out, there's actually 5 items that'll be covered. 4 will be related to this presentation, and then Katie Allen will be presenting the 7C, which is the 5th item kind of in this docket of things. The first 2 items under 7A are both city council actions, and then there'll be the borough actions. However, there's just one presentation for all 4 of those items. Next slide, please. And I'm not going to go into great detail on these because we've covered this many times in various conversations, but nevertheless, we wanted to have completeness by adding this slide. And that is, as many people know, the Event Center was built in roughly 2005 with a $61 million bond that was issued by borough. And so that bond has been in place and we've been paying on it. However, during most of the history from when the bond was put in place until roughly 2021, there was not sufficient revenues to pay the bond proceeds. There is now, coming out of that URA, which is the Wadsworth Interchange URA, which is effectively what many people think of as the Arista area. So there wasn't sufficient funds to pay those bond payments, but nevertheless, we were able to continue and meet the bond payments through some other approaches. However, now since 2021, there is enough money being generated to pay those bond payments as well as the additional costs related to it. The one thing though is there's probably not enough. We don't estimate or forecast enough that'll be generated to pay for the demolition. So we don't have the $4 million that it's likely going to take for the demolition. And we don't see a path where that can come forward. We did close the event center. Borough voted to do that and end the contract on November 30th, 2023, as noted. And as I mentioned, less than about 2 weeks ago, we came in and gave you the estimate, and Katie will go through that a little bit deeper in 7C. Next slide, please. So City Council and Borough both have expressed independently in various meetings that they think that a timely redevelopment of the Vet Center makes sense. They are looking for a mixed use and dense development on that site. The demolition of the building has been contemplated. We did look, as mentioned a few weeks ago, at a number of different alternative and possible users for the facility. However, we couldn't find anything that was substantial and sustainable. So therefore, the decision was to move toward a demolition. By moving forward the demolition, we eliminate the public safety and property concerns that exist now, reduce the impacts on residents, businesses of having this vacated building, and facilitate the interest for and the value of the property, i.e., when you really think about property that can be redeveloped, when it's clean and clear, it doesn't have the building, it brings greater interest. A developer or someone else that's interested in the property doesn't have to think about, well, what do I have to go through to get the demolition? How long is that going to take and things like that. So it actually facilitates the redevelopment and improves the timing for the construction of whatever we replace it with. On that note, it has been asked of us different times of how would we move forward. We've heard council and the borough board talk about the mixed use and increased density on this site. Basically figuring out a way that it starts generating revenue for the city and generating returns for those members of the public that are in that area, the public governments. So that would be Jefferson Schools, as well as the city and county of Broomfield and the Mile High rescue, or not Mile High, but the fire district. Moving on, then the goals for the redevelopment. This is where we're heading, and this is what we're writing up, is the increased activation for the area, improving the customer interest and visitor, and strengthening the interest overall. Next slide, please. So as we look at the funding decision, you've gone a couple slides fast. Yeah, thank you. So one more slide. There we go. Thank you. So again, as I mentioned, we don't have sufficient funds right now for the townwide demolition. So therefore, we've been in discussion. Borough has been in discussion with the city and county of Broomfield for a $4 million repayable loan at a 2% interest rate. That would result in that immediate demolition and also in a demolition that has a green aspect to it, as Katie has pointed out. I do want to note that the loan is due at property transfer from borough to an outside developer. So that's when the city would be repaid. It would be done through either the excess revenues, if there's any generated during the next 5 years of the URA, of the existing running Wadsworth Junction URA, or from the proceeds of the land sale. If you noted in the materials that are provided for council's consideration and borough's consideration, there is the possibility of non-repayment. So if we don't see enough revenue being generated through the URA or through the land sale, then there would not be a full repayment. And so that was an important thing to be able to raise and let you know of that possibility. We don't believe that will occur. The work that we're doing is to try to ensure that that doesn't occur. Nevertheless, it is a possibility. So we thought it was important to raise that. Next slide, please. So there are 4 steps for this within 7A and 7B. The first 2, which is proposed resolution 2024-144 and proposed resolution 2024-113, are city council's actions. That is first to issue a loan or to consider the approval of a loan. And then the second is to amend the budget to allow that loan to be funded through the budget process. The next 2 items are then borough items. One is to accept the loan, and then the second is to amend the borough budget to accept the loan and then have the money available for the demolition. That concludes my presentation. I'm joined here by Graham Clark. Sorry, I'm just catching up to myself. But I'm joined here by Graham Clark, the city finance director, Nathan Mosley, the budget director, and Carl Front from the city attorney's office. If you have any questions, thank you.
All right, thank you for your presentation. Does that conclude staff's presentation? Sir. Thank you. We will now proceed with public comments, starting with in person. If there is anyone who would like to be heard, please come to the podium, state your name and neighborhood for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anyone in person? Seeing none. Next is public comment from individuals joining via phone. Is there anybody on phone that would like to comment? And seeing none, we will move to questions from council and borough. Our next members should limit themselves to questions during this portion. The time to introduce amendments and state positions for or against this item is later. Are there any questions? Councilmember Leslie.
What's the current value of the land?
Mayor Pro Tem, Mayor Pro Tem, council members and borough members. At this point, we have not done an appraisal for the land. We have looked at comps just from the open market standpoint. And we see the land valued about $20 to $25 a square foot, which would amount to about $10 million.
Thank you. Councilmember Lim.
In the cooperation agreement that's attached to the memo, it has a statement that this will not be recorded in the real property records of the city and county of Broomfield, Colorado. Is it getting recorded by borough then?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Carl Front, Senior Attorney. Thank you for the question, Councilmember Lim. No, it will not be recorded at all. Part of the intent with that is that because the loan itself is subordinate to all the other debt associated with the building, that we not create a situation where there is a issue on title for the event center property when we go to move forward with the sale of that property. And with the possibility of the loan not being repaid, it's just much cleaner if it isn't recorded.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. This is gonna be questions for staff, and I just want to make sure I and council and the community fully understand these obligations of funds. What is the current payoff amount for the event center and it's the associated costs of that?
Mr. O'Mine, I'm going to take a shot at this and then you can clarify the final payment. It's a balloon payment. We're saving for that payment. It will be 10 million in 2030. This is the first, actually 2 years ago was the first time that the Arista urban renewal area generated enough income to pay the bonds for the event center. So we have approximately 35 million, maybe a little less than that based on the payment that we, for 2024.
And if I could, City County Manager Hoffman. So right now, our outstanding debt is $31.2 million. Under the schedule, that would be $38 million in payments because of the interest that's due also. As Manager Hoffman pointed out, there was a lump sum payment at the end. We also have a reserve account that's been set up, as oftentimes are. And so part of that last year will come from the reserve account as well as the revenues that will be generated from the URA. So as Manager Hoffman pointed out, that last year is pretty substantial. Nevertheless, it's within the normal range of what the payment would be plus that reserve account that we had set up.
Okay. Are we expecting the sale of the property to help cover that balloon payment at the end?
We are not at this point. We are assuming that the URA is the way we see it and the way it's been running, as well as that reserve account will be sufficient to cover that final balloon payment.
Okay.
Councilmember Ward, we didn't want to count on that.
Probably smart, but I just wanted to make sure. And then are there any other associated debts that are either inferior or subservient to the original bond payments that this sale of the land would help cover besides this loan repayment?
The sale of the land?
Yeah.
No, there is not. So there's no other additional expenses that we'll have. At that point, the land would be free and clear, owned by borough, and a fee simple with no additional debt.
Okay, so staff's pretty confident that the loan will be repaid and it's not something we will have to write off the books from the city and county of Broomfield.
Again, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, members of borough, that is our plan. I don't know what's going to happen with the URA in 2029 and 2030, but we believe that everything is set up that way, yes.
Yes, of course, many things could happen until between now and then. The property may not value as much. Revenues may plummet, who knows, but that's as best we can plan, and I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Any other council questions at this point? Seeing none, I just want to ask one question real quick. It sounds like the comps have valued this property maybe at about 10 million, so that should cover the demolition costs associated. But I just wanted to, on the off chance that values plummet, do we have projections for the Wadsworth URA? And would those projections cover the cost of this demolition?
Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, members of Borough, we have done an analysis thinking about where we think it'll be based upon the trajectory of what we see as far as future development coming within the area, and we take a very conservative approach. We do believe that there'll be enough revenue out of the URA to meet the obligations with that reserve account. We actually think it may actually generate additional funds. If there are additional funds generated during that period of time, they'll begin to pay off the debt through those excess funds. So we have the bond payment, as you know, that there's additional payments underneath that Borough accepted and City Council supported, which is roughly $1.1 to $1.3 million related to the parking garage and those types of things. That's the order, is those are the first two senior obligations, and then this would be the third obligation, nothing underneath.
Thank you for that. Seeing no further questions, this item has four matters. First is council's consideration of the proposed loan and the related budget amendment. We'll start with consideration of the loan agreement. Will the clerk please read the proposed resolution by title?
Resolution 7A, number 2024-144, approving the cooperation agreement related to the financing, the demolition of the Broomfield Event Center.
Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Councilmember Leslie.
I move the resolution.
Is there a second? Councilmember Ward.
And I will second the resolution.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, council, please cast your vote electronically. Councilmember Nguyen, please state your vote verbally.
I vote yes.
Thank you. All council members have entered their vote. The results will now be displayed on the screen, and that passes. Oh, the suspense. It's going to pass 8-0, just so you know. There we go. And that passes unanimously. Next is the second item related to this matter is council's consideration of a related 2024 budget amendment. Will the clerk please read the proposed resolution by title?
Resolution number 2024-113, authorizing and approving the second amendment to the city and county of Broomfield budget for 2024.
Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Councilmember Leslie?
I move the resolution.
Is there a second? Councilmember Ward?
And I will second the motion.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, council, please cast your vote electronically.
Mayor Pro Tem, just to jump in real quick. Patrick, the screen looks like we're voting on the borough matters. I think we're voting on council matters.
The board is set up as per I've been blocking off the borough members for vote.
Got it. Okay.
So these are just council votes. We'll go to the borough consideration in just a moment. Councilmember Nguyen, please state your vote verbally.
I vote yes.
Thank you. All council members have entered their vote. The results will be now displayed on the screen, and that passes 8-0. The next two items are borough's consideration of the loan agreement and its related 2024 budget amendment. We'll start with the loan agreement. Will the clerk please read the proposed resolution by title?
Resolution number 2024-145, approving the cooperation agreement related to the financing demolition of the Broomfield Event Center.
All right, thank you for the resolution 2024-145 UR. Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Councilmember Marshallson.
So moved.
Is there a second? Councilmember Lim.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none? Authority, let's see. So we should have all borough members do their, so all borough members at the dais, please vote electronically. Authority member Nguyen, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Authority member Goldstein, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
And Authority member La Evans, please state your vote verbally. Authority member
Mayor
La
Pro
Evans.
Tem, yes, I vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All borough members have entered their vote. The results will now be displayed on the screen, and that passes 10-0. The fourth and final item related to this matter is borough's consideration of the related 2024 budget amendment. Will the clerk please read the proposed resolution by title?
Resolution number 2024-114, authorizing and approving the second amendment to the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority budget for the year 2024.
Is there a motion to approve resolution 2024-114 or 114-UR? Councilmember Ward or Board Member Ward?
So moved.
Is there a second? Board Member Lim?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion. Borough members at the dais, please cast your vote electronically. Authority member Nguyen, please state your vote verbally.
I vote yes.
Authority member Goldstein, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
And Authority member Lavins, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Thank you. All borough members have entered their vote. The results will now be displayed on the screen, and that passes 10-0. Thank you, borough members, and especially thank you to borough members Lavins and Goldstein for your service to the URA. The final item under action items this evening is a related resolution for borough's consideration of the construction agreement related to the demolition of the event center. Borough has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Good evening, authority members. Katie Allen, Co-Director of Community Development. Next slide, please. Colorado Cleanup Corporation was selected as the construction manager general contractor for the event center demolition through a formal RFP process. Over the past few months, they helped develop 3 alternatives for council and the authorities' consideration, and those were presented on August 27th. Council directed staff to proceed with what we called the green demolition with recycling option. It was the least expensive option, the shortest schedule, and also achieved a 90% landfill diversion rate. We hoped to make it to this meeting for contract approval, and here we are. So proposed resolution 2024-129-UR would authorize amendment number 1 to the construction manager general contract agreement with Colorado Cleanup Corporation in the amount of $3,218,405. This is about $107,000 less than their conceptual estimate that you saw in August. And that would cover the remaining project for the demolition. If approved, we have a neighborhood meeting, including businesses, scheduled for October 3rd at 5:30 at the Aloft Hotel. We will be auctioning the remaining equipment in the next 30 days. Roller auction is coming into the building in the next week to assess the remaining equipment and decide if that's 1 or 2 auctions. So I don't have a date or dates quite yet. If approved, Colorado Cleanup will mobilize to the site the week of October 7th, and they'll get right to work. But for about 4 weeks, you won't see much happening other than setting up perimeter controls, stormwater, best management practices, doing utility disconnections and permitting. They think that pre-work will take, as I said, 4 weeks, and that actual demolition would begin in early November. And that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We will now proceed with public comments, starting with in person. Is there anyone who would like to be heard on this item? Please come to the podium, state your name and neighborhood for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing no one. Next is public comment from individuals joining by phone. Do we have anybody online? And we have no one online. So questions from Borough are next. Members should limit themselves to questions during this portion. The time to introduce amendments and state positions for or against this item is later. Are there any questions? Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just a quick question on the neighborhood meeting. Can you remind me how that meeting is notified to the residents and the businesses in the area?
Sure, we sent postcards last week to a 1,000-foot radius. And then I actually went to the Arista Flats leasing office today to get asked for flyers to be posted in the buildings as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Lim.
There was a note that the pre-construction services were already approved because they were under the monetary threshold, and the construction company was performing hazardous materials assessment. Has that happened already? Has that been cleared?
It has happened already. It's required for a state demolition permit.
Okay, and were there any findings with that?
There was surprisingly, there was trace amounts of asbestos, a very low level, and they will be mitigating that. The total cost for mitigation is around $1,200, and that's in the GMP.
Okay. There's in the actual Exhibit D, there's an exclusion listed here in there for contaminated toxics or hazardous waste material. So are they the ones, they are the ones removing it though? The asbestos?
Yeah, that's included. I don't know if that exclusion is if they discover something in the soils or something like that, but the building has been fully tested.
Okay. There's a requirement for material tracking documentation and generation of weekly report for diversion. Will we have council or the public have access to that at all? Who will receive those reports?
Well, the project management team will, and I can look into that certainly.
Okay, thank you. If we okay, so the company is providing monitoring equipment as part of our specifications, is what I understand. If council or staff were to get complaints because of noise or dust, are those readings, are those complaints going to be handled by the construction company, that they're going to look at the readings on the monitoring equipment? Are those complaints going to be handled by staff with access to the monitoring equipment that the construction company is putting on site? How is it going to work?
Well, whether or not there's monitoring equipment, both staff and the contractor would respond to any complaints that we might get. The monitoring equipment is I guess is a double check to find out how loud the process is at the property line and beyond. It's a little interesting because we don't do monitoring on other projects, so I don't have a reference, but I think it'll be useful information if we're in that, if we are getting complaints. But I think the strategy of the way they're bringing down the building and their work hours are are such that I don't expect a lot of complaints, right? We're not in the evening and we're working on the highway side towards the center. But we will have that data just because it's a pretty unique project and we haven't done this before. And we want to have the ability to review that and see if what DBA levels we're at.
Okay. There was a note that we're following the OSHA guidelines for those noise and dust thresholds. So I presume there's, like you were referring to, the placement of the monitoring equipment has to be at a certain place to meet the thresholds for OSHA and things like that. I guess that will be
Yeah.
done.
I mean, I think if we were getting a complaint from a certain area, we could put the monitoring equipment at that area and do a reading and see if there's something that could, be done. Certainly for dust, there's something that can be done. We do dust mitigation regularly on construction projects. Like I said, we haven't done a large demolition project, so I can't speak to the noise, but the contractor has stated that it's pretty typical as normal construction.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I'm sure if we had Bass Nectar playing at the event center while deconstruction was happening, we would definitely get some noise complaints.
Both simultaneous.
Yes, simultaneously. I have a question regarding the auction dates. It doesn't sound like we have those dates yet. Will we be posting those dates anywhere for the public to see?
Yeah, well, certainly on our project webpage, they'll be posted. Yeah, and then Roller Auction will have them posted on their webpage for people who look into auctioning regularly.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Any other council member comments? Councilmember Marshall, sorry, questions.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just one question actually on the truck traffic. Are we placing any restrictions on speed signs, things like that on the construction truck traffic along that route?
No, we haven't talked about that.
Okay. Is that something that we could, if that is a concern of residents, that we could look into in the future? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other council member or borough member questions? All right, seeing none, my computer decided to freeze up for just a moment. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Next is borough's consideration of proposed resolution number 2024-129-UR. Will the clerk please read the proposed resolution by title?
Resolution number 2024-129 UR, approving the guaranteed maximum price amendment to the construction management general contractor agreement with Colorado Cleanup Corporation for the demolition of the Broomfield Event Center.
Awesome, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Councilmember Marshall.
So moved.
Is there a second? Councilmember Ward.
Second.
Is there any discussion? I would just like to thank staff for your exhaustive search for an alternative to the demolition of the event center. I know that for some time that this was seen as, an area of music and area of entertainment in this northern corridor of the metropolitan area. And so it's definitely, it will be missed, I think, in the sense that this was kind of a venue. But at the same time, because of the declining shows that were there and because of the declining kind of entertainment that we had there, that there are definitely other venues in which people will seek out for those music and entertainment places. So, we even had some public provide some ideas that ultimately didn't pan out either. So, it is a new day in that area. And without Bass Nectar, we will see a lot less complaints. So I do look forward to that. So any other discussion from council or borough members? Seeing none. Borough, please cast your vote electronically that are at the dais. And authority member Nguyen, please state your vote verbally.
that mean? I vote yes.
Yes, Authority Member Nguyen, thank you for your vote. Authority Member Goldstein, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Authority Member La Evans, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
All borough members have entered their vote. The results will now be displayed on the screen, and that passes 10-0. Seeing there is no further business before the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority, the meeting is adjourned. And again, thank you to our borough members. The final item of business for council's consideration this evening is Councilmember Marsh Holston's request for future action regarding a rebate program for trash hauler contract cancellations. I want to remind council that this is not a discussion on the topic, and instead the opportunity for council to provide staff direction on whether or not council desires staff to dedicate time and resources to this request. Councilmember Marsh Holston, you have 5 minutes to present your request.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. As we all know, so one of the concerns that we heard during the trash conversation was residents that don't have Waste Connections, when they transfer to the Waste Connection, might have to pay a cancellation fee from their current hauler. So I wanted to explore whether or not it would be worthwhile putting up a rebate program for those residents to get a rebate from the city and county of Broomfield if they're forced to pay a fee when they transfer. No idea how much it would cost. I believe it was around 8,000 residents that would be involved in the program. Some of them already have Waste Connections. Some of them, will opt out. Some of them, I called my hauler, which happens to be the largest hauler in Broomfield, and they told me that they would not charge me the fee when I cancel due to the program. So that might be a program, an offset of it. But I think it's worthwhile looking at it sometime around the first of the year before this gets set up, so that we could offer that as a potential offset to the residents' costs.
Thank you. We will now proceed with public comments, starting with in person. If there is anyone who would like to be heard, please come to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. John Ewalt, Pinnacle North. I'm happy we're discussing this issue, but it seems to be about 3 weeks too late. This issue was raised by a member of the public among many other issues, but it was basically ignored by council at the time when it would have actually made sense to discuss this topic. There was no deadline to pass the resolution to sign the contract, but yet now we're locked in. What else did council ignore or poo-poo that was brought up by the public at the time, but was not fully considered? You moved way too fast on this issue, and now we're going to be dealing with issues like this one at a time for years to come. I think it's a great thing to deal with this, and I hope that council decides that this is worth looking at. But there are many other issues with this contract that should not have been approved the way it was done. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else in person that would like to make a comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, next we will move to public comment from individuals joining via phone. Do we have any individuals on the phone? We do not. So questions from City Council are next. Are there any comments or questions from council? And remember, this is not a discussion on the topic, and instead the opportunity for council to provide staff direction on whether or not council desires staff to dedicate time and resources to this request. Any council members? Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I guess I'll start off with staff. What would research look like for this? I mean, I think we'd have to figure out how many residents would actually be impacted by a cancellation fee, I assume, or would we just assume everyone and budget it that way, and whatever's left over just reappropriate back into the general budget?
I'm not sure. We're gonna have to check it out.
Okay.
So just case in point, so Councilmember Marsh Holston's trash hauler isn't going to charge. So it would be hard to say, here's the number of rooftops, and then guesstimate or estimate based on their haulers, whether they charge it or whether they don't charge it.
Yeah, and I guess my mind kind of went, well, the haulers are already charging different fees for different people. What makes it possible that they don't charge some people the opt-out fee and others they do. It would be nearly impossible, I think, to go door to door asking everyone, are you gonna have to pay the opt-out fee? Have you even asked? I mean, that's a pretty hefty program to have to manage. And we don't even know what that opt-out fee is, do we? I assume it would vary based on the hauler if they decide to charge one.
I'm not
Maybe
sure.
Councilmember Marsh Holston knows that information.
So my initial, if I may, Mayor Pro Tem, my initial thought was that it would be that we'd set it up as an opt-in, like the resident has to request it, and that we place some cap on it, like $50 or $40 or something. We put some cap on. My hauler, for example, said that if I was to cancel right now, they'd charge me $75 to pick up my cans. But because this would be a requirement to change, they wouldn't charge it. So, yeah, you're right. There's no way of knowing beforehand whether or not what residents will get charged and how much it would be.
Okay. Those are all my questions for the time being. I'm gonna sit and marinate this while other people ask questions,
Thank you.
if there's any.
I was gonna say, we'll see how long you get to marinate. Any other council questions? Councilmember Anderson.
I was hoping somebody else would ask a question. Okay, so here's my dilemma here is that we have a lot of big issues ahead of us. And this is just one more thing we're adding to that plate. Is there a possibility that we could just do this, wait and see what it looks like? And if there is a significant number of concerns, then consider the program if it actually becomes a real issue and that we really do see these fees? Could we delay this a little while and then retroactively put a program in place to help offset the actual realized costs that residents are seeing if we receive enough complaints? I'm just worried about trying to create another program while we're dealing with other issues. I don't know if staff has a response to that.
Well, one approach is proactive and the other is reactive. From a staff time saving, it's always better to be proactive than it is reactive and have something that's set and structured, so it's a repeatable process. It would also help to be proactive to be able to communicate with those to offer this up in advance. If it's a complaint based, it's going to take probably 3 calls, one to diffuse the situation, the next one to then find, financing. So again, Councilmember Anderson, upfront communication and programs and deliberative process is always the best approach.
Okay, thank you. So if proactive is better than reactive, then I would support doing some, is there a way to keep it like constrained though, so it doesn't become like a big program where Councilmember Marsh Holston just mentioned that there would be a maximum amount of money, so we know what the maximum rebate would be like 50 or whatever, so that we're not to try to keep this to a minimum effort on staff. I just don't want it to get out of control and become like a lot more effort than.
So it's really 2 different questions. One is effort and the other is the amount. So whether it's $25 or $50, if people are going to take advantage of it, they're going to take advantage of it. So it's not really whatever the level of rebate or refund is, the effort's going to remain the same. So really it's 2 different questions. Does council want to cap it? And at that, we would just do, say, worst case scenario for those that already have that contract. I mean, again, we're going to be wrong just on the front end. I think it's pretty generous for Councilmember Marsh Holston's folks to say, yeah, we're going to pick it up and not charge because you're being mandated to do it. Staff we just need a little bit more time rather than kind of going from the hip right now to figure it out. I have no doubt that we can figure it out, and the communication could be flyers in the impacted residents in their utility bills to be able to say, here's a new program, and the other outreach and engagement. So again, it's just developing the program.
Okay, so based on that, I would be supportive, so the proactive, not the reactive. And some type of cap and like Councilmember Marshall said, make it an opt-in program. So you'd actually have to submit and not just make the assumption that we're going to go out and refund the money to all these. Like, so residents hopefully make that effort to try to get that $0 cancellation fee. So thank you.
All right, any other first round questions or comments? All right, I will jump in. So you all know my issues with the contract. I did not vote to support this, and I'm not going to rehash that vote. I do worry about Broomfield continuing or becoming even more so the Bank of Broomfield. You know, if I was a trash hauler listening online, I would definitely see this as a way to recoup some of those costs. You know, when we're looking at this, it potentially becomes a, you know, $500,000 that is going to be shelled out. So my worry is that, you know, that on one hand, we're not going to cover folks opt-out fees, and we are going to charge folks opt-out fees to not do this program. And on the other hand, for those folks that are going to opt in or are going to not opt out, but have fees, we are going to cover their fees. So again, there's inequity that is going to be created here. You know, the idea that this already has 2 FTEs to run this program, we are now going to grow the size of this program as well and add more resources to the cost of this program that are not going to necessarily be offset by those fees that are associated with this. So I do have concern with this along with the program in general. Again, I'm not going to rehash that. I do think that, you know, perhaps there are some other routes that we should look into. You know, one of those is requesting all the trash haulers not charge a fee, you know, to Broomfield residents. Again, you know, that we should ask them first to see if they want to help, you know, cover, you know, some of the costs of this program before we just jump in and cover the cost of it ourselves. So perhaps some other ways to handle this issue. So those are my comments. Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I guess a few extra questions that I came up with for staff. I know during our water discussion last Tuesday, staff said that there's enough cushion you could set aside to something $1 million for cushioning certain residents, or it wasn't even certain residents, it was just across the board, cushioning some residents. I assume if council were to go down this path with what Councilmember Rush Holston is going, that would pretty much be the upper limit of the cushion per se. And if there was to be a decision to go with a further reimbursement of residents, that would require us to start cutting things within the proposed 2025 budget.
So this is one of the reasons that it's never good to legislate from the dais. It's connecting those dots between cushion and to what extent does the cushion go away before we start cutting. It would be best if council said, staff, check this out, or deferring to Mayor Pro Tem. I can tell you that we've had probably a half a dozen calls wanting staff to communicate with their current trash hauler to help resolve some questions. So it has begun. And those are really, those aren't staff questions to answer. So yeah. we're happy to do additional work. Should that be council's direction?
Thank you for that answer. Kind of going off what Mayor Pro Tem kind of stated, because he kind of took the words from my mouth. Attorney Rogers, is there any way in which we would be able to, let's say, prohibit haulers from charging that opt-out fee as part of their license to operate within the city and county of Broomfield's limits?
So you're saying in the future to add a condition to the independent hauler's license that would restrict them from,
Charging an opt-out fee if a person is required to switch because of a city and county mandate or something of the sort like that. I'm
my gut
spitballing
reaction
here,
is no, we definitely can't do it in the past. We cannot go now and just say, you don't have to pay that and we're going to prohibit it. I'm absolutely sure on that. In the future, if we could attach it to the license, I'm 90% sure that's a no. Because I think we're limited in how we can license. But we could look into that if that was council's direction. I think I would caution that because then we're getting into a policing and regulatory issue in an area that necessarily we don't have staff to review the contracts that our independent haulers will have with each homeowner to make sure they're consistent with our code.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that question. I think for right now, I am not necessarily in support of this program. Mostly because we don't know how many residences are going to be impacted by this. We don't know for those who will be impacted, if any, what that cost will be. I suppose we can always be cynical, although it is private enterprise, so a little cynicism is worth it with them, that they will just try and exploit this for more money. And I'm not sure that council is wanting to go look into the budget and start cutting in order to fund something like this. I could be wrong. That's just my opinion. You all can state your own opinions, but that's what I think. And so that's where I'm at with this proposal right now. I think this was something that reasonably should have been thought of by us. And if it wasn't, and it's an oversight, and this might be another hard pill we have to swallow.
Thank you. Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just real quick, I was just doing back of the napkin math. We had the staff last, when we did the hauler, estimated approximately 8,500 residents being part of the single hauler traffic program. Waste Connection mentioned that they had about 1,000 residents in Broomfield minus the opt-out fees, roughly 7,000 potential rebates. At $50 each, that's $350,000 would be the rough maximum cost of the program. Obviously that isn't just rough, but so well within that 2.5 cushion that we talked about last week. That's all. Thank you.
Councilmember Cohen.
Just to see clarity, I think the motion was just to study this in the future and not solve it from the dais. I think we've gone way too far into speculation. We don't know. That's why Councilmember Marshall was asking. It's an issue that may not resolve to nothing, or it may turn into something. While I was listening to wild speculation, I was noticing that every contract's different. Fort Collins, they bought everybody their trash carts as part of their agreement, and they got a grant to pay for them. So this is a different arrangement. I think Councilmember Marshall is just asking us to take a look at it. We have about, 6 months. We probably have time to make a few calls and figure it out some other time. But I would just urge you to say yes now. We can find out if what the answer is in a few months.
Councilmember Lim.
If we move this possibility forward of the reimbursement for the cancellation fees, would staff at the same time entertain Mayor Pro Tem Schaaf's idea that they would just call the haulers and generally get a feel for whether those haulers will waive the cancellation fees?
I'm sorry, Councilmember Lim, are you asking if staff would contact those individual haulers?
That would, if we were to give direction to go forward with studying this, studying this as defined by Councilmember Marsh Holshin was studying the cancellation, the reimbursement of the cancellation fees. Could we broaden that to say staff perhaps start by just calling the haulers who operate in Broomfield and seeing if they will cancel the fees if the resident is required to use the city trash hauler, as Councilmember Marsh Holshin found in his particular case.
That's a huge lift. I know it sounds like it isn't, that we would just make a couple of calls. Some of those calls from the residents that we've had already, hoping that we will troubleshoot. Getting a hold of those individual contractors in and of itself is difficult. The hold times are difficult. That's what we're hearing from the residents, upwards of 50 to an hour. Councilmember Marsh Holshin just, he waited on hold for 2 hours. So no, I wouldn't support expanding that scope other than the very basic premise of here's how much we would estimate that it could cost. And here's the funds that we could identify.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments from council members? Councilmember Nguyen.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I also support Councilmember Marsh Holshin's proposal just to review this. And obviously, I agree that we should not use this time to legislate and figure out the exact details. But obviously, finding if there is any fund mechanisms or if a rebate process would be even possible would definitely be something we should look into. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. So I just want to add one more note for a second round to Councilmember Cohen's point. It's on one hand, it is studying the issues and time for council to deliberate that and look into that. On another hand, it's a bandwidth issue. We have staff resources and priorities. Some of those focus session items that we discussed back in March still have not come before council and are still currently being discussed and researched by staff. So this is another issue that we're putting onto that overfilled plate that is those bandwidth issues. So I just want us to be cognizant of that, of those items that we do send to staff and ask for direction from, and just be aware that how many issues are we putting forward. So with that, in order to provide clear direction to staff on how to proceed, I would like to ask council members to indicate their support of the proposal request for future action regarding a rebate program for trash hauler contract cancellations. A yes would move this issue forward to a future conversation. A no would not be support for moving this forward. So will the clerk please just call the roll just so that we can indicate clear direction to staff.
Anderson,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Lim,
Yes.
Marsh Holshin,
Yes.
Nguyen,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem,
No,
Ward,
No.
I believe there were 6 votes. So we had 6 members supporting this issue. So this will be moved forward to a future conversation regarding the rebate program for a trash hauler contract cancellations. Is there any other business to come before council from my council colleagues or staff? Seeing none, there is no further business. The business meeting is adjourned. Thank you.